everybody, it's Chris Schmidt from Rocket Lasso, and welcome to what is this? I forgot. Episode 10, I think? Episode 10 of season 7. How is everyone today? It's a beautiful Wednesday here in Chicago. We just got out of a heat wave, and then actually my AC unit sort of broke down, but my brother and I were able to get a motor replaced and manually did it. So it's kind of fun getting that up and working. Yes, Dean asking any regular questions or Unreal. Yeah, no Windbush today. I'm going to stop promising Windbush until it is like super duper official, but we'll just have to see when that actually happens. So yeah, any question anybody wants to tackle? I don't have any specific topic set up for today, but if you want to start putting in your questions into the chat, I will start trying to tackle them. TJ was here early and asked about maybe making, well, based on liquids, playing with a volcano erupting. I wonder if you have a, oh yeah, Hokkaido. You might be getting our weather from a couple days ago. Everything is tending to move from the west to the east, so you have our heat wave, and I think it got even hotter than when I had it. But yeah, we can try to do some volcano erupting type stuff. Now, there'd be a bunch of different layers there. So TJ, if you're there, and this kind of goes for anybody else too, if you have any specifics that you'd like to see, but start listing out like specific aspects of like obviously the closer we try and get to realistic looking, the longer it's going to take to do on like every single level. But it goes to there's a big difference with a volcano erupting of like, oh, we're trying to do like little splats of lava. Oh, the laptop's not syncing. Let me unplug and replug it. But yeah, we could do little splats of lava coming out that maybe are landing on a bit of ground versus like a lava flow slowly going out versus lava flow coming out and looking like it's solidifying over time, or the smoke coming out. All of these are different elements that could stylistically change everything. It also goes to like, oh, is this kind of a cute little stylized animation thing, or are we going a little bit more towards realism? So this is a massive spectrum here of like, oh yeah, we can tackle this in a half hour, or it's going to take 12 hours to build it. Like these questions matter. I definitely unplugged and replugged that earlier, but okay, I just saw it blink. So now, okay, now it shows up properly there. And let me reactivate this, and I'm hanging out in the corner. Okay. Yeah, TJ, if you're still here, feel free to chime in with more specifics. But yeah, there are a lot of kind of fun elements here. Now, now volcanoes, it can be anywhere from like a tiny little kind of rock pile to like mountain-sized things. Um, so I'm gonna probably aim for something a little bit smaller, just because particle scale wise and whatnot, I think that's going to end up being a lot more reasonable for us. Um, let's see. Let's have some fun with some fields and try and like sculpt out a shape a little bit, or we could even just potentially model one a little bit. So we're going to have a figure in here to kind of remind us of what we're aiming for. But I'm kind of thinking that we're aiming for something kind of this scale, where maybe there's a volcano where it's about this size, hole in the middle. And let's see, we'll start out with a reasonable number of subdivisions. Yeah, that's reasonable starting out. And why don't we use some sculpting tools? We pretty much never do that. Nothing crazy though. Sculpt, and then we should be able to just move these tools immediately so I can draw. Now these are going to, this is going to push up, but I think it will end up getting like some three-dimensional shapes as we go. Make that larger, make it stronger. Sculpt, sculpt, sculpt. I mean, I might make this like really big and get some like initial sort of shaping going. Hold down control, let that push down. So this is probably in all three dimensions, not locked on a particular orientation. But let's just have a little fun here. Yep. So we're just kind of sculpting up a little bit of a hill here, and I guess I should just make a hill and I can eat away from it. So that's going to be kind of like the built up little area here, and shrink that down a bit. Want that to be built up. We might smooth out some areas here, and then we can start shrinking down some various sections here, and you kind of see I have a little bit of a spot here that we can be flowing down a bit, little extra bits of detail. Nothing crazy. Yeah, this is definitely in all 3 dimensions, but it's kind of fine for what we're doing here. I dig it. And then maybe let's switch to smooth. I don't even know which tools are what here by icon. What is wax, knife, inflate, amplify, repeat, grab, smooth. Make that big, make it weaker. And now we're just going to pull back on some of these little rougher areas a little bit. There we go. Minimal sculpting, but hey, it's better than just a randomly distributed one. Let's see. Let's see. I'm thinking, oh, let's get a little bit more of a pit right there. Give it a distinct spot to roll down. I think I smoothed it out a bit much. And actually, it might be kind of fun if there's like a little couple of ridges here. Maybe that could fill up a bit and then cascade down spots, just giving it some opportunities to give us some visually interesting areas. Okay, cool. Now, again, we are sort of aiming for like, this is supposed to be real world scale. I think generally speaking, if you're doing simulation stuff and you're eventually planning on, rendering it at that scale, then having this be kind of realistic is good, because if you're like, oh wait, now I need to run subsurface, a subsurface material on the mesh, and then you simulated everything at 1/10 the scale, it's gonna be really hard to scale that up again and get something that you think looks kind of accurate. Now, potentially I'll subdivide this some more, but also the more subdivisions we throw at this, the more it's going to slow down. So I'm going to keep it pretty rough here. Let's go to episode 10, scene files. Volcano. Oh, that's 1A. Volcano. Let's see. TJ said, good point. My sticking point is how to make the throw and then having it run when it lands. Yeah, so yeah, and we're not aiming for terribly realistic. So I'm thinking let's aim for like maybe a series of like little bursts coming out here, and then we'll let them kind of drift around and do their thing. Maybe we'll even make several emitters here. So let's play around. We're going to go to my particles layout, which is custom made, but it's just all the stuff from particles all laid out here. And we already know that we can make a liquid emitter, but that is just creating a volume as far as I know. So we're going to start with let's start with a basic emitter. Let's just get some flowing lava to start out with. So we're going to keep it simple. Let's make, even here is a rectangle, which I think is fine. And let's just plop that there, far enough down that maybe it would be covered up pretty quickly by the liquid. In theory, I should have a slightly deeper pit here, which, I guess if we're still starting out, we might as well do it kind of carefully. So I'll just scale that down, grow, scale it down, or move it down, scale, grow. Just get that pit a little bit further down. Now I can grab my emitter and have that be sunk below a little bit. Okay, now that will be emitting, and currently this emitter is set to constantly emit some number of particles. And let's see, I'm thinking the radius is going to be relatively large. Let's say 5 to start out with. And then I suppose we'll make a liquefy, and we're going to assign the liquid property to it via that. So this is applying a liquefy, and we will currently use the default settings just to see what happens. Let's right click on our plane, which we'll rename to land. Right clicking on that, simulation, collider. And here we've got all this lovely new stuff where we can do the surface or do the volume, collision side, pre-processing. It's currently set to thicken, and I think I'm going to push that even further. I'm going to say like thicken 5. And liquid collisions, currently a voxel size of 1%. Maybe that's 1% of the liquefy settings. I'm not sure. So let's see. Immediately particle group, let's say that we are going to make them larger. It's a radius of 5, so I'll say size 5 just to draw it. And tell the particles to be outputting a color of red, because why not? Maybe a little orangey-er. Cool. All right, give it a quick save, just because you never know, and hit play. It's going to initialize, sending it on over to the video card. Now we do have all this geometry, so maybe it's trying to calculate some of that. But the initialize might, yeah, okay, now stuff is starting to happen. Okay, let's see. That seems a bit excessively slow to me. Temporarily, I'm going to scoot this up into the air. Rewind, hit play. The liquid automatically should give it gravity. So it's just not running super fast here. How much of this is due to the collision? And let's just, I want to see if these collide accurately right now. Oh, and then suddenly my computer's like, oh, let's go fast. Now, okay, these are sneaking through right now. Not great. So we're going to go back over here and say, okay, we're not going to thicken. We're going to close the holes. So it's a completely different kind of algorithm on there. Let's run that again. And in theory, it's trying to like close off this geometry, making it a big volume. And now once it's entering a volume, then it's trying to, what's the right word? Yeah, it's really hard to collide into the straight up radius. I think that thicken is automatically making it such a solid volume that's going to have a lot harder time sneaking through. Now saying that, that looks like it's still straight up falling straight through. Nope, it's not falling straight through. Now this liquid, collisions. Oh wait, no, this is the collision. Let's go to our liquefy, interaction, constraints. That's our main thing. Liquid contribution. Yeah, use default radius. Does default radius mean the radius of the particle? Because the way these are all gathering up on top of each other, I'm not sure that those are actually returning a radius of 5. I might make, just for us to see the scale, and before we're meshing anything, we already know a cloner. Set this sphere to 5, clone onto an object as a multi-instance, and the object will be this particle group. Now we'll actually see spheres, and I will decrease the polygon count on there because we don't need those to be high poly. And how low can we go? That's reasonable. And yeah, you can see that these are super duper intersecting with each other. And that's making me think that the liquefy is not taking into account the particle radius, which is interesting because it says use default radius. But if we say don't use the default radius, okay. I thought maybe a property would appear here, but it's not. Oh, is the default? I think the default radius might be a global particle setting. No. Liquids default radius is set to 3. Okay, so that's the default. So let's increase our default up to 5 for now. I'm not sure if that's a good radius, but that already looks a little bit better. Blurp, blurp, blurp. We're taking on the radius and all that. Yeah, that's not taking on. So yeah, our 5, straight up 5 should be working fine there. Increase. And yeah, we can see all those starting to gather and kind of blob on top of each other. Okay, that's cool. Now, I am curious how far we can start pushing this. And even here, it's like, these seem to be passing through each other a little bit, which, it's like, do we want that? Do we not? Maybe, maybe not. But let's start throwing a lot more particles at it just to get some baseline stuff going here. So save, emitter, and let's emit from the main tab 10 times as much. So constantly creating a lot more of them. Okay, nice little burst there, encouraging. And in theory, this is filling up, and it's filling up relatively quickly. We got plenty of frames here. It's running just fine. And as it fills up enough, here's the hope. Yeah, look at this already starting to like kind of flow into the next section. And the viscosity by default is not bad. I probably want to make it a little goopier, but that wasn't too bad. And essentially, this is what I was hoping for, that we could start filling up. We can fill up a shape, and then it's going to want to start overflowing at certain points. Now, we're not going to want to wait 400 frames for it to fill up all the way before we get there. But yeah, here we have essentially not changed any settings except for, we haven't changed any settings except for the radius, really. And we already got pretty nice looking flow going here. But let's modify some things. A lot of, I'm trying to remember. I think that we learned that this is a kind of initializing the value and not constantly updating it. So we'd have to reset the animation to see it. Now, what do I want to do? Because like we've got this initial volume, which I do want this initial volume to go, but I don't want to have to remake that every time. So I'm wondering if we should do a quick Boolean operation so that that will automatically pre-fill. So let's see if we can do that pretty easily. So let's see if we can keep this kind of parametric. That'd be kind of fun. So if I were to make a rectangle, or I'm just making a cube, and essentially I want to fill up the volume, which is pretty much that. That's what I want to fill up. So let's make an instance of our land. Let's see. If I make an instance of the land, I'm going to put the land into a group and then hide that. So now I'm seeing this. Now, what I do want to do is get some volume off of this thing. And what's the easiest way I can do that? Could extrude, but extrude is multidimensional. We could put into a thicken, which might be the way to go. But how far can we go with that? So if I do a thicken and I push it down, is that going to work without turning into a giant messy blob? Maybe, maybe not. Like as they start pinching into each other, I'm worried that those volumes might not be good, but let's just see if it does. Now I'll throw that into a bool. So we got the legacy bool, and then we got the new bool. I do actually, even though I've like a lot of the functionality of the new bool, why does it say legacy? Where's the new one? Am I blind? Bool, bool, bool. I'm kind of not seeing the new bool. I mean, yeah, there it is. Where I just blind and it was there. Anyway, this doesn't. There are several properties. Let me show you. If I were to pop this open in Legacy Bool, we get options like create single object, hide new edges. Hide new edges. I am desperately missing from the new bool. Not super important in this particular instance, but if I were to throw in the land, and then we'd make this cube, and I'm going to say return where the two of them intersect. Yeah, you see, actually, it's not where they intersect. It would be A without B, maybe. But you see, that's not working so nice right now. But I'm not surprised at that because all the crazy intersections happening with this thicken. So I don't need this to be perfect. So here's what I'm thinking. Let's take this thicken I just made and put it into a volume builder, and then put that into a volume mesher. And now you see we got this incredibly dense mesh, but I don't need it to be anywhere near that detailed. So I'm going to say this is going to increase resolution up to like 50. Now you see I got a very low poly version of it, but now all that crazy intersection that might have been happening down here, that's all gone. So that becomes a pretty clean mesh. So now if I were to reactivate these, now I am starting to get something. Bool without a subtract B. Yeah, essentially this is what we want, but I only want this little section here. So let's see. No, I don't want to move it up. Let's make that editable. Go to my polygon, scoot this pretty far up until that kind of disappears. I'll grab this edge and scoot that over. Grab this edge, scoot that over. I'm just kind of eyeballing this. And again, I'm trying to make this kind of parametric. And now this last one, I'll just cheat it by grabbing these 2 points and scoot that over. And there we go. Now we get the shape I want. And the original mesh is still there. So if we want to go back and modify it, it should update that automatically. So now we've got this new, I'll just call this the volume. Cool. And now we'll make another, actually now we can just make a liquid volume. And then the geometry has this already set on the volume, which is great. So now I can hide that. And let's even temporarily turn off our current emitter and just see what we end up with here. And let's unhide my original group. So now we got this geometry. So now give it a save, hit, go forward. And as soon as I do, the hope is, I didn't say any voxel sizes, but yeah, you see that instantly got made and we've got this whole volume filled up. Now, let's check out some things. Properties, simulation, scene. Yeah, so we're using the radius of simulation scene. It's interesting that lists differently here than in the other one. But I think I'm going to, I don't know what this will do, but I'm going to change it to be in the other particle group because I essentially want these to be identical. So we don't need its own group. And this also means that we will be cloning onto it. So now we hit that. Now you see that those went down. And yeah, it filled that volume pretty well. We can probably make it denser now, but now, the hope is that we fill this up right away. As far as the color is getting messed up because I didn't set this to orange. These will be slightly different because I'm not perfectly matching them, but there we go. That's orange. Now we can go back to our liquid fill emitter, and the emission is based off a sphere packing distance enable. So it looks like it's automatically doing it based on the radius from the simulation scene. So here's our resolution. So I could say override. Currently we're running at 5. I'm going to overfill it. I'm going to say a distance of 4, which means it probably makes more spheres. And the hope here is it's going to kind of overfill that volume and it'll kind of explode outward, which very much is. Okay, that's a lot of lava. Let's do 5.75 maybe, or 4.75. 4.75. I just want to overfill it a hair. Wow, okay, a little goes a long way. So the simulation scene thinks it's 5. If I type in 5, it still explodes outward a little bit. So maybe they're already pre-intersecting a little bit. So I'm just going to keep on going until I find a number where they don't explode. Distance of 6 is still exploding. So we're going to start using a larger number. Let's say 10. Okay, 10 doesn't explode. Let's try 8. It explodes minimally. So 9? There we go. 9 was the magic number for at least this little bit of it. Anyway, now we don't have to wait 400 frames for that to fill up. That's pretty much all I was doing there. We can reactivate our emitter, and now I guess we'll look at it happening. But now these should be creating particles from the same group. Both of them are just running. It should be pause like that. So now these are interacting, and they should just combine with the rest of this thing just exactly the way we want it to. And if we take a peek at this underneath, it's doing an excellent job of not escaping. So excellent, very good basic setup. Let's go, and I'm going to visually rescale those down. So we're just pretty much seeing our spheres for right now. And now we can start playing with that viscosity. But I have a major question here, and that's going to be what settings are being applied, because this liquefy is setting the properties for this basic emitter, but that doesn't mean it's not setting the properties for our liquid emitter, because that's being given its own properties. So if I want to override all of them, I'm thinking that we need to do some sort of condition here to just override it. And maybe I'm missing some detail here that would simplify this, but I'm going to say that, yeah, as soon as they're born, they're going to get this liquefy applied, and that could be getting applied again and again and again every single frame. So without knowing for sure, we could say when the age is equal to 1, it's going to be given this liquefy property. And then, yeah, that's when it's given this liquefy property. But then I'm going to essentially duplicate that. And now in this one, I'm going to say when the age equals 2, we're now going to use a different liquefy to set the property. So now everything definitely has liquefy, and now we're going to set a brand new property on both emitters, though the results of both emitters. So now we can play around with our viscosity and our surface tension. So let's go way too far, and I'm going to go 10 times stronger on the viscosity and surface tension. And until I learn otherwise, for now, I'm always going to increase the viscosity and surface tension equally, and then deviate from there, because I think the relationship between those, it's good to have them be directly related. So let's hit play. Right now these are up in the air. Soon I will move them under, but right now let's just take a look at the viscosity as we get it. So, oh, interesting. Those do not look like liquid has been applied to them. Those are just flying away. Okay, so condition age, if the age equals 1, 100% chance that it's getting liquefy applied. Okay, and then when the age equals 2, set the properties. Okay, what am I missing up here? Because those are acting like they don't have the property at all. I could say 0. Let's temporarily turn that one off. Let's figure out where the problem's happening. In fact, let's turn off the liquid. Simplify. Okay, those are all liquid right now. Now, was it breaking because I said to set them at 1? Okay, yeah, interesting. Like, when I say set them at 1, it wasn't working. But now if I set them at 0, it does work. Now, let's say that we're setting the condition at 1 now instead of, because the zeros, accounted for. So now we can do 1. And this, how can I prove like one behavior or another just to be sure? The what if I just drop the density way down? Yeah, those look less combined, maybe. Now I'm going to turn that back on again, reset. No, I don't see a difference between them. Kind of A/B testing. Maybe, maybe not. Very hard to tell. Okay, let's set the liquid contribution down like really tiny. Interesting. That doesn't make much sense to me. This is always running when the age equals, and that's it. I just want to set it one time. Both of these are only running once. So I think that once you set the property, it's going. But instead, it looks like most of them are just behaving one way. And then a small percentage of them are getting applied. But I didn't modify chance. I modified the liquid contribution. Let's say that this is going to be greater than. So it's constantly applying. That didn't seem to modify it. It doesn't seem to change. I mean, it's getting applied now. Like, obviously, that's way more goopy. And I like the way it looks. But it's not applying the way I thought it would. I don't want to, like, we could spend a half hour maybe like isolating that down. And over time, maybe we will learn exactly like kind of what's causing that or not causing that. But right now, I'm not quite sure. Okay, but let's just kind of keep on plowing through. So now we've got, well, I do want to see the way this flows over more of this first waterfall to get a real vibe for it. But I'm thinking, let's get a bunch of friction going here. So we've got our land, and I'm going to give it some friction, or actually I'm going to give it some stickiness. So let's say it's got a stickiness of 1, and stickiness doesn't really do much until it's applied to both things. So, yeah, down here we can do stickiness. So here it is just with this goopiness. And you see how it's like super sliding across the surface? So the stickiness is what's going to prevent this. So now, if I say 1 stickiness, I think it's, yeah, that's going to be a major effect. Like a lot, that's a lot of stickiness. So I'm going to try like 0.1. I think a little goes a long way here. And even that might be too much. Now, let's go and reset, and let's reactivate our liquid fill. Hopefully that does apply, and all the settings are getting uniformly applied everywhere. But now we've already got that filled up. And it's kind of fun seeing this like this appear and fall. But I think what we could do is grab this emitter and move it further down under the surface of our liquid. And hopefully it just sort of starts looking like our liquid is bubbling upward. So let's let that start running. Yep, that fills up nice. You can see very much that the viscosity right now is trying to make those 2 bits hold on to each other. Let's see. It's hard to tell the shape of the collision here. I'm trying to see if I can kind of detect our emission, trying to push that up a little bit. But keep in mind, we're also now fighting. We are now fighting the friction, all the stickiness rather. Yeah, definitely you can start seeing that start to increase. But nothing wants to move if it's touching the surface, which is what I want. Essentially, if the lava were to touch any given bit of the surface, then it's going to be really sticky there. And then the rest of the lava has to sort of fall over it until it wants to move to the next stage. I mentioned a bunch of times last week, and I don't want to just keep repeating myself, but this particular laptop always, it's like sometimes the video card's like, let's go turbo speed. And then sometimes like, no, I'm not going to go turbo speed. And I don't know what distinguishes that. So, here it really feels like it's going super duper slow, like kind of painfully slow. And then suddenly it'll be like, let's go super fast. And it's, regardless of what I'm doing, it just seems to behave that way. And I'm not a hardware person, so I don't know. But this is taking a little bit too long for my taste. So let's go back to our mission. And we said we're emitting 1,000. I don't want to go overboard, but let's say 3,000. So 3 times the speed of lava coming out from here just to be the base flow. And keep in mind, we're not doing anything as far as like the little bursts and explosions yet. Yeah, a little friction goes a long way here. Let's see. FCO was saying one thing I'm finding when increasing of viscosity and surface tension in the scene, the liquid settings tab has a huge effect on how those values are interpreted in the sim. Agreed. Last week when we did the basics of it, we noticed that the viscosity and surface iterations had a massive effect on the way those behaved. Like, very proper settings unto themselves. Man, this surface. I mean, I guess we do have a lot of surface tension here. So the surface tension is making this behave a little bit more like a balloon. You see that's really starting to like build up there. And you combine that with the stickiness that this stuff doesn't want to go. It really is trying not to slide over the edge. So I wonder, I might want to pull back on the surface tension so that this whole thing would be filling up a little bit more evenly. Where I think this is a little bit too thick even for lava. I mean, it's starting to slowly go over the edge, but again, I'm pretty sure if I change the setting, even though we said to operate this like greater, oops, I just suddenly felt the frame rate increase. So now running at a more reasonable resolution or reasonable frame rate. Yeah, it flows down. That didn't accelerate all fast. And remember before we saw that kind of go like blurb and it kind of slid up here. Now it feels like no, every little moment here is like this very forceful action that is very reluctant to move on to the next area. So it might be a little strong, but in principle, I like the what we did there. We could lower the viscosity. We could lower the surface tension because this is very goopy here. But it's got the behavior I want. Where before it was acting like a puddle of mercury, like kind of whipping around inside of a bowl, and now this is like a really slow, sludgy porridge. And again, we only changed 2 settings. And we are now throwing quite a few particles at this, and when the laptop wants to be speedy, like this is quite reasonable. Yeah, it's so much surface tension and whatnot that look at like how overscaled this is becoming. Still pretty cool, but now let's go and grab this liquefy and grab our constraints. And before, like the default is 0.1, so let's go. And okay, well, look, that did update. Suddenly I said 0.1, and now the whole thing is like moving. It seemed to have reacted, which is what it's supposed to do. So go figure. Now, with it already doing what I did, I don't know if that's going to recover. So let's try resetting. Blurp. Okay, now it's filling up. Now we're just back to default. So going to get another baseline. You see this is still moving down slowly here. It's goopy instead of liquid mercury. So I do think I want to go higher than it currently is, but let's see what we get here. Jay, yes, that is the goal. Right now, we're just trying to define the baseline behavior we want from the lava, and then we're going to start trying to do like bursts of it. Of course, we might make more changes there, and maybe it will have different liquid properties. Yeah, this is actually like this is still quite goopy. So maybe the friction just did a lot of what I wanted it to do. So okay, I don't dislike that. I will make a few modifications here, and I don't know how dangerous it is. Actually, no, the volume would be constantly refreshing. So I'm going to turn off this entire hierarchy. Let's modify our geometry just a hair here, and let's even grab our sculpting tools. So I'm going to hit Control Shift A. No, oh, for some reason my deselect all is triggering Windows functions. Go figure. All right, I'll just deselect that way. Let's see. Let me turn off safe frames. Let's go temporarily back to sculpting. Grab a little sculpt tool. Let's make this pretty tiny. And I'm going to give that like a really nice little crevice shape there. And now let's make more of a distinct kind of crevice-y shape here. Because I want, I kind of want the more distinct areas of flow. Actually, it might be kind of fun. Let's dip this down a little bit. Maybe if we can get a little bit of overflow going, we can get a secondary stream. So it kind of goes one way and the other if it overflows. And let's make another little boulder there. Little boulder there, and it'll kind of flow off here. Give that a bit of a hill. Okay, cool. And then let's grab that smooth and just calm all that down just a hair. And okay, cool. Back to particles. I'm going to grab my Fong here and say square area weighted and increase that. Just make that nice and kind of nice and smooth everywhere, regardless of the sharpness of our geometry. This entire hierarchy should have updated with any luck. That is our volume now. Actually, interestingly, a little bit further above than I would have kind of thought. I think we already got the volume kind of working properly there, but why? It almost feels like it's offset, but nothing's moved. Everything's at 0. I don't think I moved any of that, so it's almost like this didn't refresh or something, but it would have to have refreshed. Why is that different? Oh, there's a thicken. Actually, we might be able to bypass this thicken. And if I just go to my geometry here, select my land and say optimize and close holes. But, oh, great. Oh, okay. Optimize and close holes. It's no good in that scenario. Well, I think maybe some of the volume's getting cut off. Again, I'm not going to worry too much about that. Let's not get super lost in the weeds. Last week we were trying to be super duper meticulous with every little step. This time I'd like to try and just plow through, and we'll learn as we go. But we're not doing the overly meticulous thing. We are not currently super speedy. But with any luck, we got a little bit more of a viscous kind of flow going on here. Or it's more liquidy, but more than we originally had, and we have that volume pre-filled. Okay, cool. So let's maybe try and play with some liquidy-esque explosions here. Now, options as I see it. We could make a completely different rig. Okay, yeah, 2 different options. We can make a completely different rig, which is attempting to, like, every pulse make a burst of liquid. Or we could maybe just make a force here. And it's like we're just working from this existing pool, but every once in a while there's a burst of like pressure that's going to suddenly fling everything as it currently exists out. And of course, it's refilling itself again, but we just get like this little burst happening. And that one actually kind of sounds fun, a little more fun to me. So I might aim for that. Right now, I'm going to also grab our liquefy, and I'm going to double the stickiness. And I know we're already creating quite a few particles, but I'm going to increase our rate up to 5,000. And yeah, let that flow a little bit more. I just want to refill. And the extra stickiness is maybe hopefully going to stop that. You see how, see, this is what I'm going for. Do you see how this kind of looks like it's climbing over itself? If we didn't have all that stickiness, it wouldn't look like it's climbing over itself. And that's exactly what I want it to do. Flowing around the rock. I know. I think there's going to be enough that's going to like just flood right over the top of the rock. Kind of funny. I might modify that. Yeah, we've got a lot of lava. I did increase the flow, but I just want to see more stuff happening. But yeah, maybe that's too far. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff is going to be a lot of push and pull. Okay, sir. I would be curious. Yeah, I do want to play a little bit more like with the surface tensions and whatnot. But we're back to that not being the most speedy. Go figure. Okay, so pressure. Let's try the pressure thing. Let's try the simplest possible version of this to start out with. And that's just going to be a burst of wind. So if we said, okay, here is wind, and the wind is blowing sideways. Now it's blowing upward. We could even randomize that, so it's going to constantly change. So it's going to be constantly blowing wind upward, and we're going to make that a really strong wind. I bet you even like there's a good chance even that's not strong enough. And then we will say field, and that field will be a spherical field or cylinder field, maybe a spherical field. And hey, it can even have some fall off. So I'm going to dip that into the lava where the lava should be, right in the center. And again, we can add a lot of random variation as we go. Now, How do we want to do this? I'm trying to think of how I want to time these explosions. I might actually. I don't think I've. Oh, I do have my fields. So we could use the Rocket Lasso field list. So these are the, Rocket Lasso field driver, and then we had the field pack that came along with it. And we've got this really handy object called the Rocket Timer. So if I make that, essentially, I'm just trying to avoid recording some keyframes so I can very easily remap this stuff. So I could say that this is going to act as a multiplier, and then here's what the spline looks like. And I should be able to like remap the spline to be something, I guess maybe kind of like this. So it's suddenly going to be like bursting full power, and then we fade it back out again, and it's going to be looping this. So we could scoot that over. Now we could just keyframe it, so it's like, oh, it's weaker, it's stronger. But this is just me making it a loop. I could say, yes, it's looping. So every 30 frames, every 30 frames, like 8 frames are going to be like suddenly a big burst of power, and then it'll turn it back off again. It'll loop back around to the beginning. That's what I think would be happening here. So let's just see what happens. There's nothing in the beginning, so we should have a few frames of quietness here. And then, yeah, there we go. Okay. Actually, not bad. But remember, I told you I thought maybe this wind was still not going to be strong enough. And yeah, my intuition there was actually almost exactly what I thought it would be. But yeah, this lovely little kind of like boiling burst there. Now, dare we go 10 times stronger? That seems a little excessive. So I'm going to try 4 times stronger and start that over again. And let's see, settles down. And then, okay, 4 times. I mean, that's fun. But I've got some plans here for getting some random variation on there. That's looking cooler than I thought it would. But now we are going to go back, and now it's 5 times stronger. And let's just reset that. Now I think the frequency is probably happening a little too often, and potentially we could change it to be like noise based instead of using the timer. The timer is going to be very regular right now, but if we made it noise based, then it could be like completely random. But I do like these kind of like short bursts. Oh wow! Even oh, maybe I didn't go 10 times stronger. All right, that should be even stronger now. But essentially, I'd want to well, I guess I'll explain in a moment when we get there. We just want to get a baseline going. But for the most part, I want to get an explosion that's too strong. Wow. Okay. Well, that was way stronger wind than it actually didn't change that much. So we're going to go 10 times stronger again. Settles in. Come on. Give me some power here. Okay, so interesting. Okay, this maybe makes more sense than I was thinking. Because we are feeding in a spherical field, and the spherical field is slightly sunk into the liquid, there's a lot of liquid on top. So all of this force of the liquid below is ramming into the particles above, which doesn't make it fly straight up. It makes it fly out as a big burst of direction in every orientation, which in some ways is almost exactly what we want. But let's grab our spherical field and switch it to be a capsule or cylinder field. Make sure it's facing the correct orientation. Let's make it like essentially super tall. We might need to limit it, but I do want that fall off on there. But now it's going to be affecting it not with any sort of vertical fall off. So in theory, an entire cylinder of shape is going to be like, I want to go straight up. So, but of course they are sticking to each other. It's still very sticky. So maybe it still will burst out in multiple directions. I kind of wasn't taking that specifically into account. So it might be better, and yeah, it's better and obviously different. Okay, yeah, this was a lot more vertical. Okay, cool. Now, um, I might, inside this field, make a group. So there's a group, and inside the group, we'll drop, for now, I think we're going to get rid of the timer, but for now, we're going to drop both those in. And then I like just visually dropping these in. And now we can make a second effect. And this time, let's make a turbulence. So here's a turbulence. Turbulence is a big old wavy field kind of going everywhere. I'm going to take the same amount of force, which is a lot, and drop that on here. And let's give it some scale. Honestly, I think around 100% is probably pretty good for scale based on our figure reference here. And then I'm going to say the turbulence is also limited to exactly this same group. So any change we make to one, we make to the other. So let's see what that does for us. Oh my. The turbulence maybe behaves a little differently than the wind because that was really extreme. So let's try knocking off one of these. I think the turbulence was a bit much, and it may still be a bit much because, yeah, that is a pretty big old number. Oh, look at that. That is not bad. Now, there's going to be a couple of potential problems here. Mainly it's not bad, but the stuff that's continuing to live inside the cylinder is going to get the effect a lot more. So really, we'd want to make sure that that cylinder is relatively like kind of cropped in. I wonder if we give it no fall off, how it handles it. So let's go to remapping, say no fall off, and now I can grab my field and really shrink that down. And let's rewind, go forward a frame, and now just eyeball that until it's pretty much just on the surface. So that's getting the effect only kind of in that exact moment. After that, it just completely escapes it, which does make me think that the wind is going to have to be even stronger, which is already quite strong, but we'll double it. And let's just see what that does. It's going up, so I might need to raise this a little bit, but let's just see. No, it's settling back down again. Yeah, see, because the force isn't yanking it and continuing to fling it further upward, you see how much more subdued that was. We made the wind stronger and it felt more subdued. So several, I'm just trying to think of what the push and pull here should be. Like we could technically scoot that up a little bit. And then like, I just feel like we're putting in way too large of a value here into the wind. That's 5 times stronger. Let's see what that does. There are, yeah, there are additional things, but the more uniform we can make this, the happier I'm going to be. Oh goodness, what? Okay, we might need some subframes or something because that just grabbed everything, is yoinking it up out of it so quickly that that's how far it should move in a single frame. But then I think the viscosity is taking back over again, so like it's not getting to keep its acceleration, which is kind of wacky and interesting. Let's try lowering the strength back down again to when that didn't seem to be an issue. But it was just funny how it like teleported like a cylindrical shape of it out and up and then sort of reacted from there. So essentially this is what we had before, but it's just up slightly more. Now you see the bursts go. It just doesn't have quite enough upward momentum. But of course, subframes are going to slow everything down and potentially dramatically change our behavior here. So, yeah, I don't know. Now, like I said, we could, this is one methodology where we're like, oh, here's this force. Another one to be like, well, we'll make a separate emitter and kind of make a burst of them fly up, which, maybe ultimately that would give us a better end result. So Control D, simulation, liquids, neighbor passes, extra iterations, surface tension iterations. I don't think we like. Do we want more iterations there? And then do like neighbor. If we go back to the base scene simulation stuff, is this universally applicable? Like if we add more substeps, are the liquids getting those additional substeps? I would think yes. Let's more than double it. And then I'm going to grab the wind and then put it back up to the number that kind of made it be real weird. So now it's 5 times stronger. Will that now not teleport up quite the way it did? Maybe it teleports up, but it teleports up less than half the distance it did. Like all these things are giving us additional bits of information. What is it doing? Oh, well, actually, I'm not surprised. So just because we changed some simulation settings there, extra subframes, now I think all of these are colliding differently than they were before because there's more subframes for it to calculate. So the volume is getting pushed outward. So what's good to know is the liquids, yes, are responding to those substeps. So that is a universal parameter. Now our force turns on. That's flinging it up. Yeah, see, that's a problem there because as soon as they escaped, the liquid, it just stopped. It's like it goes up and then it loses all of that velocity. And I wonder if our viscosity, if there's like settings inside or like internally in the math, if the viscosity is being like some sort of speed limit is getting applied. Like I wouldn't be surprised at that type of thing, but I don't remember seeing anything that looked like a speed limit. Yeah, nothing I'm really seeing. Would account for that. So that's kind of tricky. It's kind of tricky there. Yeah, FCO. There is a clamp there, but I don't think it's on by default, is it? The yeah, see here, velocity clamp is they're off by default. So yeah, I'm not clamping. And the point is it's acting like I'm clamping, but I didn't turn on a clamp. I don't remember seeing any speed limit anywhere. Acceleration clamp override. Oh yeah, and acceleration clamp size. Okay. Okay, so apparently there is one. I'm just going to turn that off. Okay, that is now off. That could be bad. FCO, if that is indeed the case, then thank you for pointing that. I did not even see it. Now we still have those extra subframes. We can probably drop our subsets back down again if this is the case, because like you still see all of this is super. Oh yeah, even there you see that the those burst out way more probably because of the acceleration stuff. And this is just like there's a lot of particles interacting there, so they're kind of bursting to try and fit out. Okay, now you see that it's reacting quite differently. So now the wind is probably way too high. We were trying to compensate for a speed that was slowing it down. So I'm going to drop that way down. I just dropped it down 2 orders of magnitude because we just turned it off. Because in theory, we're not making anything that's moving too fast. So we're going to just let it move any speed it wants to. This initial burst, I wonder, we did make the liquid fill emitter a distance of 9. I might drop that or increase that up to 10 just so that we don't get that initial kind of bubble burst going on. Oh. Justin, what do you... let's see. Do you have any comment on Maxon releasing a water sim plus AI features in the same update, confirming the theory that they are in more than one way testing the waters? Yeah, you are. You are correct. That was worthy of a tiny stream of air exhaled. Oh, and I totally looked away and missed what was going on here, and it looks like too much happened. So we're gonna calm. I'm gonna turn off the turbulence. And let's just look at the wind. Even now, that the way that burst out, I'm thinking the wind is probably too strong. When it goes to once a question's been asked, I tend not to spend too much time looking over at the chat until I get a little bit stumped, because a lot of people have a lot of different ideas in their head of like how to try and achieve something, which are all going to be very different. And if you've been watching the stream for a while, you know I tackle things on a very like, okay, kind of what's the realistic way of kind of doing something. And oftentimes like people's suggestions are not in line with that philosophy. So it's really easy to go down some rabbit holes. Okay, so oh wow, okay. Look, we made everything so much weaker, and look at like how much power was just able to be flung um from there. Boom. Okay, so next one. Boom. So yeah, thank you, FCO, about that acceleration thing. I did not even realize I was there. This is going to drain our entire lava pool very quickly. I am kind of curious to see these two collide with each other, though. Blurp, blurp, blurp. Oh, it's fighting. Come on, computer, speed up. We're going to get like a little splash out to the sides. That's kind of what I'd hope we'd get. Top one's kind of bursting right through that one. I do feel like we're getting some left and right movement. Kind of splashing it down. We're going to get the next burst coming. Oh, yep, there it is. Explode. Okay, I mean, that's all cool. Now, it's not bad. Okay, even the power there is not bad, but we need to do a couple tests. First of all, I'm going to leave that height, which I think is a little, maybe too high. Maybe it's almost exactly what we want, and maybe it will go higher. Let's also grab our turbulence, which I'm going to just copy the power of the wind to the turbulence, which is a fifth of what it was. Let's just see what one burst does, see how much like drift we get with a little bit of turbulence on there as a baseline. And then we're going to try and make this be a little bit more random. And we'll have to do some more isolated testing because like obviously our frames per second here are slow enough that we can't get, you know, really good feedback from it. But we can do that other ways. So I just want to see one. Settles in. I think right around now would be the first burst. There it is. Oh dear. Turbulence is still maybe quite strong. Very, very, very strong. I mean, usually we are using turbulence at around 50. So maybe we're not like completely in the ridiculous ballpark here, but let's try like 1,500. And maybe some of that acceleration stuff is not necessarily a bad thing. But now we know. Now we know forever about that acceleration thing. Makes sense that you wouldn't want the liquid super duper escaping. And maybe that will create some problems with this. Maybe there's like some calculation stuff that ends up happening with natural liquids that are going to make them explode out, and that stops it from happening. We don't know one way or the other. But it makes sense that generally speaking, you wouldn't want liquids going super crazy. So it's still quite strong. But I do want the bursts to be like a little bit random. Okay, that's better. They're not splattering everywhere. They leave this area quite quickly, so then they're just doing whatever they want via gravity. Ooh, that's pretty good. I dig it. I was always seeing those particles one frame ahead. Can we... Yeah, okay, I can't hide the particles. Now we just see the spheres. The sphere is giving us a sense... Oh, nope, as soon as I clicked off it, they came back again. Oh, wait. Yeah, there we go. Oh, that's actually pretty good. The turbulent scale. I mean, I dig it. It looks cool, and they're going to splat and slowly do their thing. It's happening a little too often, but yeah, we're getting a lot now. Just a single wind and a single turbulence are giving us all of this motion, just with a simple cycle. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect by any means, but it's pretty good. Like I'm actually quite pleased with these bursts. Now, these are happening I think every second. So like there's a burst every second happening right now. We'd want to If I were to grab the timer, you can see right now it's taking 30 frames for that loop, so we'd want to slow that down a bunch. But what I'd like to do is use what we've got here and maybe make it a little bit more random. So to test it, we're going to turn off our liquid, and maybe we'll just do this with a simple like matrix object. So actually, a matrix object's a pretty good idea here. So if I were to stretch these out, let's decrease the count down to 1. I'll make a whole bunch. Let's turn on endpoint and make a whole bunch of these matrix objects across. Okay. And then let's make a plane. So a plane's just going to be affecting it. And I want to push up. And then we're going to make a noise field. And now you see this noise field is randomly making stuff move around. I'm going to scale it up until we start seeing the noise get actually represented. When it's really tiny, obviously it's pure chaos and you're not really going to see a pattern, but as we increase, eventually you do see the noise emerge. So now we can get this noise and we're going to give it some speed. And if I were to hit play, oh, that's odd. Why is it, there's no particles being generated. Why is it still going so slow? That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm going to save it, copy that, new file. Okay, that's potentially speedier. Slow. Is my Boolean? What? I want to know. We're not moving on until we find out why we're not generating emitters, but like, is just the existence of this particle group? No. Oh, wait, maybe. Yeah, maybe that particle group was still cached or something because that was causing it to slow down. I thought maybe our mountaintop was like going slow or something. Wait, it's suddenly going back slow again. So if we get rid of our volume, wait, I don't understand why this is going slow. I've virtually turned off everything. There's nothing for that to affect. I don't understand why this scene. And I'm not blaming cinema here. This could be stuff on my computer just being weird, but like it doesn't want the scene to go quick now. Go figure. Well, anyway, I'm just going to continue to ignore that stuff and move on. So we already kind of know that like right around the size of the top of that. So if I hit play, we see we got this constantly shifting animation. What I'd like to do is get sort of this pulsing burst happen. So let's see, how do I want to do this exactly? I might make like a very, very, very large noise. So now it's still a noise, but it starts looking like it's all behaving uniformly. And then I might speed this up, maybe speed it up. I'm going to increase it here. And then let's go into our field and remap it with a curve. So with this curve, I'm going to try and do this all vanilla. So I'm going to put this curve down here. So I'm going to say most of the time I want it to be low, but every once in a while it can go up pretty high. So you see it's hanging out low and then boom, gets up pretty high there. Now, maybe I even want that to blip. Yeah, I think I might want that to just be a tiny little blip that happens. So we're going to say something. You know that noises very rarely get up to this like super peak. So what I want it to do is kind of be like, well, if it's going to happen at all, it's going to happen kind of full power. And let's see how often. Well, right now there's only 90 frames long. We want this to be happening, and I'm fine with like a couple little random blips. Boop, 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 boop. Now, what I might do is make a quantize and drop this down to 1. And now it's either down or it's up. It's either no power or full power. Okay. And now we can see how often that's happening. And essentially, how often do we want this to happen? So a lot of this is going to be determined by the speed here. And like we could get entire like spells where it doesn't want to do anything. So I could slow it down and say, okay, it's going to happen less frequently. So you see that was a burst. That was a burst. So it's burst, burst. There's sort of a tiny one there. I might make the noise even larger. And yeah, you're getting these kind of partial blips going on. Maybe there's some sort of threshold being crossed. I think I want it to be happening a little more often. So I'm just going to scoot these over. Let's even select all these points and say linear. Oh, well, I reset to linear. That's fine. These are now hard edged. So now I can do that, something like this. And I moved, if we scooting this down a little bit goes a long way. doop, 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 and doop, doop, doop. Now, see, to me, that still feels like it's happening a little too often, so I might slow it down. And then the important step after that is going to be us playing around a little bit with our decay. So I'm going to say, okay, let's add some decay. And then I'm going to say, I don't know how much we want, but now this will automatically snap up and then fade away. So we can decide exactly how much power we want. So it has a little bit of time. It gets up to that peak and then it fades away. And now just imagine now that this is 0 to 100% of how much power is bursting out from the wind. So we're essentially designing the animation that's going to drive it completely randomly. Now, in theory, I could grab this noise. We could move it down to a smaller scale. I'm not sure how small we'd want to go, because as I start, I probably have to type in a smaller number here. If I type in a smaller number, you're going to see that we're going to get a similar effect, but you kind of get this transition. And then, but kind of looking at it like, yeah, actually, no, this is not the way I'd want to do that. So let's go back to this being like an absurdly huge number. I think it's even bigger than before. So it should be a lot more uniform. So pop, down, pop, down. And now we could layer things. I could go into our plane. If we say it's not clamped, we could add another one of these. And I could say spring. Keep in mind, this is going to drive the force. So, you know, it's going to get abstracted quite a bit. But if we add it in the delay and we put it in the spring mode, you can now see it'll shoot and kind of wiggle near the top before fading back down again. So, you know, that could add a little bit of oscillation there. Like, you know, that potentially that's fine and it's cool. Maybe it's too much. Maybe it's not enough. So even here, like that, like those are a lot of bursts there. That would be a lot of like burst, 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 burst. But then again, maybe that is kind of fun to have that randomness in there. There might be almost nothing for a while, and then there'll be a lot for a little while, and then burst, burst, burst. Like, so I do like the idea of that variety. We could be feeding in a bunch of different noise types. Like, there's a lot of things we could add on here. Now, that is now saying that's going to be boom, full power. But then I could make, I'm thinking, let's make another noise here. And I will feed that in. I think I'm just going to feed it in at the very top for right now. And we'll say that will multiply. Turn off the color because we don't need those calculations. And now I'm going to reset this back to something reasonable. And I'm going to scale this up. Let's find a pause frame here. Yeah. So now you can see that this is a multiply on top of the entire thing. It could have some animation speed, but now what this is saying is that different areas in space are getting more or less power. So essentially, there's almost like another little layer of turbulence, but this is going to be getting applied like to the wind and the turbulence. Certain areas will get more power and certain areas won't. But essentially, this line appears, it's got some variation, some animated variation on there, and then it weakens down. And it's going to burst back up to like a lot of power and then go back down again. So this is just the power. And this little noise here is like this power, this oscillation of it in a smaller space. Does everybody follow the concept? Because I think it's pretty cool. Just trying to find a scale that can give us some variation. I don't want it moving too fast. Honestly, we could probably move it down quite a bit because any given burst doesn't need to really animate it. But like each burst, I want to be a little different from each other. So I dig the way this looks. Keep in mind, I'm showing this as a little cross section, but we could show this as a grid, you know, a full like 3-dimensional grid and see how this is applying over all space. But ultimately, think of this as just we are piping through 0 to 100% power, and that's all this is doing. So I'm pretty sure we can put groups in groups. So let's make another group field, and then we'll call this group field burst power, and drop these as children. And I will say twirl that down and then layer these all in accordingly. And now I should be able to just copy this burst power, move back into our original file, paste it in, and we've got our entire group here. So I can drop this inside that group. We don't need, I'll leave it here, but we don't need the timer anymore. So I'll reactivate that. And now we will say, don't worry about the timer, but yes, this burst power, don't worry about color or direction, will now multiply on top of the cylinder field. Remember, the cylinder is always 100%. So it's essentially these two are like multiplying on top of each other. Where both of them are true, this will suddenly have an effect. That was just a reference. So let's reactivate everything. Yeah, everything's back on again. We might need, now that we are weakening the power in certain spots, we might need the wind and the turbulence to be stronger because we are now, by definition, weakening them a little bit. But let's save this as next version. Cool. Save, go. Wait, why did I render? I just wanted to play. Although rendering the picture viewer would not necessarily be a bad thing as far as us getting better playback. It does tend to eat up hard drive space. I think Cinema doesn't clear the cache of all of your images until you close down Cinema. But yeah, if we did render this to picture viewer, then we could be always, playing it back in real time. It would take a while for it to get there, but we could play it back in real time. Now, okay, it looks like immediately the noise is saying, well, there's a little bit of a burst right at the beginning. Not necessarily a bad thing. Boom. And keep in mind, there's a lot of variables here for like how long the power is going, because as long as that, the matrix line wouldn't be at 0, this will be constantly trying to fling upward. So even as this falls back down again, if it slows down and it falls back down again and it enters this gravity well, it'll immediately get kind of like reverse gravity and it'll fling it back up again. But having said that, that's a really nice looking burst. No problem with that. It seems like, well, it still seems like it's flinging out some, but let's give it a moment. I don't have a problem with what we're seeing yet. Also, something we want to pay attention to is when we get any given ball of goop, any little lava that lands into a little puddle, I'm curious how much that puddle will be wanting to move. So that'll be another variable for us to play with the stickiness. Because I don't mind these little spots hitting, but it would be kind of fun if they were moving slightly, and I'm not sure that they will because of, I did a little stickiness goes a long way. This is just something we've known for a long time. So that spot looked great. These are now kind of like recoalescing, which looks great. They're falling down. We didn't get another spot yet, but that's good. I mean, that's why we brought that into a different scene file. We brought all of that over so we could get a better vibe for the timing of it, because it's going to be impossible to get a vibe for what the timing is doing here. But in the other scene file, it was like super easy to be like, oh, the line goes up, the line goes down, the line goes up, line goes down. We know what it's doing. Oh, nice, that one fell out. So we kind of got this goopy spot happening over there. All these little bursts going. And then meanwhile, this entire thing is still filling up. So like this is eventually, in theory, going to fill up enough to start overflowing there as well. We could control the velocity, or we can control this turbulence separately. We can control the wind separately. And well, it goes to, all that data mapping. Potentially we could do data mapping where it's like, as long as you're inside of the kind of this cone, this little pit, that the lava is very hot, but we could make it that it slowly gets colder as it moves away. Like as it drifts down this mountain, that could start re-solidifying some. And that would be an entire additional element that we could play with here. It looks like we're getting our next big burst. It could be a tiny one. It could be a huge one. The turbulence seems to be very much sending it in a particular direction, but that's why we did it. We want that sort of variation. No, run! He's gonna get hit. Oh, it went right through him. He's dead. Poor fella. Didn't even see it coming. That's a really nice splat. I'm actually quite pleased with the way that these are looking. Look at that. Like this is so directional, that particular burst. Like it's really cool. Oh man, like taking a project like this, and like I am enjoying this, and in theory we could change the resolution of these dots, make everything smaller. Of course, it'll take longer to calculate. We could be doing all sorts of crazy material stuff. We could be meshing all of these, and we could take this little cylinder shape, and that could maybe be drifting around like left and right, getting bigger, smaller. There's so many additional variables that we could be playing around with here that could layer and layer and layer. And then another thought I was having, which it goes to we've already been working on this for over an hour. So like, how long do we want to spend here? I mean, are people enjoying this? Should we move on to another question, or should we keep on trying to push this effect further? Now, a thought I have that I don't think would be a good idea to tackle in this stream, but something that would be really cool would be if we made the lava actually consolidate, that the lava could almost be physically becoming more of a physical model. So it's almost like the land itself here could be, I don't know how far you could push it, but you could definitely make the land start growing more, where it's like, it starts layering up more and more and more, and the particles would collide with like the solidified version of the mesh. I think that's something we could do. But I don't know if I want to push that. I don't think I want to push that there. And in theory, well, it's like if this entire thing was sort of made of particles, if this entire mountain was made of particles, we could make the mountainside like heat up and potentially like remelt itself down. This one, lots of tiny little globules here, which I don't think is unrealistic. I've watched a disproportionate amount of lava, like volcanoes exploding. like where it's like in like Iceland, there'll be like live stream cameras where you can just watch like lava flowing from some small volcano they have, which is really cool. So yeah, you can get like little goopy bursts, and you can get little ones that are sending a bunch of little particles all over the place. We can make these, be trailing smoke behind them. We can make it once it recollides with the surface that it could be. Ooh, yeah, look at these goops. They are sliding down slowly, but they are sliding down. Here we got another one. That's a nice centralized one. Burst. Just a little geyser on that one. What's cool is like with this one, it's going to go up. It's probably going to make some particular drips and whatnot. And then it'll fall back in again. It'll just refill it. And then the next burst can fling that out again. That's a great looking one. Oh, actually, there's more dimension to it than I thought. From the front here, it looks kind of like straight up and down. But from the side, look at all that dimension that we have to it. Looks so cool. Dean's asking if we can try and mix different liquid colors. FCO, an additional emitter with different densities for heavy rocks and stuff would be a nice refinement. Yeah, I mean, I suppose lava is probably not super uniform in its viscosity, and potentially we have different liquids at different viscosities. I'm not 100% sure there. And then maybe one thing I'll do. Oh, look at even this burst that escaped that's kind of pooling down. It's pretty cool. Looks like this collider, and actually this might answer some of my questions. But you see how this is floating on nothing? That's making me think that it says triangle mesh. Volume. Oh, that maybe makes sense, actually. Remember we said to close it off, it's now a volume? Well, because my shape is so irregular here, it's probably closing it off almost, and it's closing it off. Let me just show you visually. So this is probably closing this off in such a way. It's not going to be exactly this, but it's probably closing off kind of like this. So you can see that maybe it's like slightly rotated and tapered and whatnot. So it's kind of like, oh, it closed it off, but kind of like that. So that's why you can see these are pooling on the surface, because the bottom has been sealed off in kind of an unusual way. We could compensate for that, but yeah. And that might even be happening in a few other places. Most of the places seem fine, but down here it's not. Let's go and just do a very basic kind of like the lava will look like it's cooling just by changing its color here. So let me think. How do I want to do this? I'm thinking we can control all the colors. We can do some color remapping. We can map the age, but I don't know if I want to do that. We do, okay, I'm kind of starting this without a plan. This is just applying to everything, but it could be in the group, it could be out the group, doesn't really matter. It's already, we've only got one emitter. So we could make a color mapper, and this color mapper is saying, well, based on the age of the particle, we could say based on the color of the particle, but maybe age is the way to go here. So like based on the age percentage of the particle, going all the way from 0%, which means it's very, very young, to 100%, which means it's like the particle's at the end of its life. Although the particles live forever right now. We're not having the particles disappear. So we don't want to do age percentage. We want to do age. So this is going to say we are mapping from the brand new particle's age, and we're going to go all the way up to how long should it take? I mean, we're not letting this animation play for that long. So 300 would be 10. So we could say 300 is 10 seconds. So over the course of 10 seconds, any bit of lava here is going to cool down. So what colors do we want? Well, if the magma is ultra hot, we'll have it be yellow. And it's going to spend most of its life being orange, I think. So I might even influence that a little bit more here into orange. And it's going to fade to red, and then the red will fade to black. So when it gets above 300 and beyond, it's going to be black, fully cooled off. Now, in theory, it would need a lot more frames, and there'd be a lot more cooling frames, etc. We're not going to super worry about those details. And this is just absolutely setting the color of it purely based on the age. But let's go, and honestly, this is probably even just going to apply. Is this going to retroactively apply? The information might be there. So if I hit play, all the colors might pop and it jump to what they should be here. as soon as we let that, yeah, as soon as I did, like, boom, you see that all of these adapted because all that information already did exist. And you can see these older ones are getting into this red range, and these really young ones are yellow. In theory, they're young, super duper hot, and flying up into the air, and they cool as they get older. Now, we could potentially do additional things where it's like if things are isolated. I'm trying to think of how I would do this, but it's almost like based on the density count. Like these areas are really dense, so like the heat could be transferring really like nicely between them. Um, and then when they get isolated, like a little splat like this, it could be like, oh, well, there's barely any there, so those are going to cool faster. Like we could potentially put in variables like this. But here's the most simple one. We're just mapping the age. Now, we could do some blending, which could be a good idea. Blending age, that's an interesting thing to do. But yeah, based on a set radius of 10 centimeters, I might want to go larger, but the larger you make this radius, the more calculations it's doing, because like any given particle is seeing more particles. And keep in mind, these particles are 5, so this actually is not that large of a range. I might even go up to like 40. And then the strength here, I'd probably want to lower that down. But what this means is if this is churning up, and I don't know for sure, but it's like, see how these yellows are right, like that yellow is really close to a red. That's a relatively old one. This is a relatively young one. So if we let this play a little bit, as these hang out near each other for about a little bit more than 10 frames because of 10%, they're going to blend their ages together. So essentially, we're making some of the particles younger and other particles more rapidly older in order to blend them so that those heat differences kind of diffuse through the entire system, which generally speaking, I think would be pretty cool. I'm going to, let's say the strength is 50%. So it's going to very, very rapidly do this just so we can see the effect. Look at like this yellow patch. Actually, no, those are drifting away. But like over here where you see these are all interconnected, you can see that, yeah, they're all the yellow just went away because the younger yellow ones just de-age. You know, they got aged up quickly, and then the other ones did. These are becoming a little bit more uniform across the shape. So you have complete control over that just via this blending. And then I'm trying to think how and when I want to do this, but essentially what I kind of want to do, I'm just trying to think of the right shape to do it. Maybe just be another cylinder. This cylinder's got mostly the right shape, so I'm going to copy that out. And if we're going to make another cylinder, I'll make the cylinder larger. And let's see if we can kind of see this from this point of view. Wow, that looks really cool. It's gonna be a little bit tricky here, but we got in theory this pool of lava, something kind of like that, and we can shrink that down a little bit. So this pool of like internal lava, maybe I think I'm capturing that pretty well, but if it sneaks above, yeah, it's too high right now. So I pull that down. So essentially what I'm trying to do, just eyeballing this in the most basic way possible, is say, and let's just build a condition as we go. Color mapper. I think we do want a color mapper. I'm going to say, here's another color mapper, and this is coming from underneath it. Actually, no, we don't want a color mapper. I guess we just want a math. I'm going to make or is it a data mapper? Is it a field condition? Oh, goodness. There's a lot of potential different things to do here. If we make a field condition, we're going to say, oh, it's just a condition. Yeah. Okay, so condition. Yeah. So this field condition is just saying, well, whatever's put in here is going to behave this way. So I'm going to say if you are inside of the cylinder, there's no fall off, so we don't have to worry about the slider. If you are inside of this cylinder shape that we just made, which is currently hidden, if you are inside the cylinder shape, then I want to do some math. So here's a math. And what math are we doing? Well, I'm going to say that your age is going to be assigned a value. And so we can essentially say, we can set your age back down to 0. So it's like, as soon as you're in that hot area down there, you're reheating back up again. Now, we could do a bunch of things where we could modify. Right now we're assigning, but we could say subtract. And I could say, well, subtract 10. So every single frame you're in there, you're losing 10 on your age. and it's going to go further and further down. Now, if we don't want those to go negative, and I think age might be able to go negative, you might be able to be minus 100 frames old. I'd want that to stop. So we'd also need to make another condition. So I can make another condition here, and this will say if your age is greater than, I'll just say, yeah, if your age is greater than, we just say 0, that's fine. If your age is greater than 0, then there's a 100% chance. So now this becomes a subcondition. If you're in the field and your age is above that, the math will run. So now it can't really go negative. Maybe it can go a little bit negative, but not very, because I said 10, and this is saying if you're at 0. So I could say, hey, if you're older than 10, you can go down 10. But if you're 9, you don't meet that condition anymore. You don't get the math applied, and it doesn't get younger again. So this is now rapidly de-aging, but that does mean that these slowly get to reheat a little bit. Not super slowly, but they will slowly reheat. Now, as new particles are being born, and right now we are constantly spewing out new particles. That's why we did have some yellow ones, because there's constantly new particles being born. But now, if I hit play, and this should just continue from here, every single particle that is falling inside that cylinder, in theory, is heating back up again. Yeah, look at this. That's actually really cool. You see here, the central core there is where the new ones were already being born. But now you can see this hard cutoff line when they're in the cylinder, and you can see the gradient passing through. So all of those are heating up again. So we're constantly getting this new fresh lava from inside there. Now, if you're not inside the cylinder, then it's constantly getting older, and it eventually will turn fully black. And in theory, we could also map the age here to like the viscosity. So we could make it that things are getting like way stickier as they get older. So like, you know, we have all the data here just based on age. Age is being the main parameter I'm worried about. Now you see this big burst come out. I might remap the colors so that like yellow is only at the very, very beginning, because now we are making quite a bit of it. But now, yeah, we get this big burst here, and you see all this young, super hot lava down there at the bottom, superheated lava there. Bursting out, and we get a nice mix of colors. And because we are blending them very, very abruptly, like these colors will, you see these very bright yellows are going to fade very quickly as they kind of splatter back down again, and then they'll match the color around them. But what should be cool is like if a splat of yellow hit like over here on that one would reheat up a little bit and the yellow would cool down. But yeah, already you can see these ones on the edge. I'm trying to think of a way that we could stop these from sticking on the edge so much. Like I would want those to goop back down again, but there's an awful lot of structure to them. That might have to do with some surface tension. But I do like the surface tension. But I think all those properties could change based on the age. So there's a lot of stuff. Oh man, I am loving the way these splats look. And look at like this superheated lava in the center, and then it's starting to solidify down here in this lower area. And we have so many big giant splats getting flung up that not much lava is getting to flow down into this area. This is really cool. A great question. We're ending up spending almost the entire stream here, but hey, these are the cool new features. We've got this really great exploding volcano. I'm very pleased with the rig. I feel like we made something very organic. And it was as simple as a turbulence and a wind without needing another emitter, which makes me happy. Oh man, this poor guy. Is that actually hitting him? Oh yeah, he did. But yeah, okay, so let's pay attention down here. A huge splat just fell down onto this heated lava, and you can see a lot of it's still a little bit red, so it's not fully 300, but some of those are fully 300. And something might get to be like 500 frames long, which would mean it would need a lot of heating up to get some color back in. But yeah, this bigger splat goes, you see all of them are pushing forward now, where in theory, once something cools down enough, we could just remove it from a group, and it's like, oh, I don't move anymore. I'm not liquid anymore. I'm just a solid particle stuck in this spot. But we still have the blend on there. So I'm expecting these to start blending between each other. I thought it would be happening a little faster. Did I weaken it back down again? It's 50%. I mean, the flow is looking great. I super duper thought that would be, these would have blended super quickly. The property is the age. They're blending. That can happen before that, but that wouldn't be having an effect on this. That field is a subcondition. That shouldn't be having any effect. Yeah, I'm not sure. I moved them and suddenly everything started shifting. It looked like it shifted quite quickly there. So maybe that order did matter more than I thought it would. Um, but yeah, we're the blending is just blending age. Now, well, now it doesn't look like it's blending anymore. That one frame, it super looked like it jumped. And now it doesn't look like it's getting applied. I mean, we haven't restarted. We keep on pushing forward and forward and forward with this current simulation. Oh, look at all those colors. Like just mapping colors on this stuff can make it look so nice. Look at this beautiful liquid. Um, yeah, this is cool. I dig it. Got this string here. Oh man, we could layer so many things. Um, let's see. What else could we do? The I'm not the data mapping. It's essentially our playback is not fast enough for me to feel confident in tweaking certain settings right now. But look at this outer shell is so solid that there's this separate flow flowing on top of that outer shell. That's impressive. Oop, here's the next one. I like that we had that big gap there. There's enough time for it to calm down, and now we get this burst of fresh lava, superheated up. See the structure? Yeah, this one's very much just a bubble. So that one mostly just went upward, and then the surface tension is keeping it kind of on this outer shell. So that's why it looks like a bubble. That is not a bad thing. But yeah, I wouldn't mind trying to remap some of the some data, do a little data mapping and change the properties of the liquid, where we could be saying like as it gets darker, it's getting slower. Wow, look at that! Look at all these beautiful little splats going. Um, let me think. I don't know why I'm. Well, I'm just assuming that all these instances make it map on there better. But if we make a liquid mesh, and doesn't it just automatically apply everything that's got a liquid property gets meshed? It's thinking. It's not going to let me click, so let's just give it a second. Now there are, I suppose, quite a few particles here. But if it's taking this long to initialize, it does say constructing mesh. If it takes this long to initialize, then this is going back to me making the particles out of the emitter more justified. Because if the liquid mesh gives us good feedback, but here I don't know, I just like if this is just a blob here, it's not giving me a lot of information. It's like, oh yeah, there's a blob there, it looks good. But now, okay, well, you know, there we go. It did eventually do it. And well, anyway, I'm not gonna keep that running because I seem to take a really long time to calculate. But you see that the colors are translating over, and we could blur these colors even more, but the colors will translate onto it. This mesh, I don't think it would have to be this dense, but maybe it would have to be. Maybe we have to make the particle smaller to make this have a higher resolution. But yeah, I think I'm just going to delete that. But yeah, if this is just this blob, you see that it's like, well, I don't know how many particles are here, but by doing the cloner method, then I can see exactly how many particles are there, and I feel like it's giving me better information. I was just trying to think of why my intuition was to do that with a cloner and not be meshing it. So part of it was speed, which even now, just deleting that, it's like it's trying to maybe there's like a refresh not happening. Yeah, seems to have. Okay, yeah, going forward a frame. Turn that off. Anyway, that's that thought. Look at that splat. Looks great. Now, anyway, if we did a data mapper, this is like I said, this is where I'm a little bit skeptical of if the data mapper was mapping on a custom property, and the property is here's a bunch of those liquid things, we could make it more sticky based on age. That could be kind of fun. That might be the most visually obvious one. Let's try mapping the stickiness. So the current stickiness, as we've told it to be, is 0.2. So that's like a minimum. So if we go to our data mapper and we say when your age is, let's say in the beginning it can be pretty viscous for the first bunch of time. So let's say for 60 frames all the way up to 300, that's going to be our mapping range. I could even say like 100. But yeah, when your age is between there, I'm now going to map a custom property, and the custom property will be your stickiness, just the stickiness. And we're going to say that your lower is going to be 0.1, so even more viscous than what we currently have, or maybe less sticky than we currently have. But then when it's all said and done, the upper out is going to be 1, which is like way higher than we currently have it. And this should automatically get applied to the values here because the age is a known variable. So even right now, I might increase this lower number, and we could even increase this upper number. So like, but let's see if we can feel this happening at all. Where like this red one might still be slowly oozing along, but these really darker ones that are aged up a lot more might just like freeze in place. So let's see. Yeah, look, that red one is slightly moving, and this dark one is barely moving. So was it as simple as just putting on that single data mapper on stickiness? And keep in mind, stickiness is just one property here. We could be mapping a lot of other things. Now, if the blending did work, then in theory, some of these lighter colored ones could land on a darker one, and then it could start re-oozing itself a little bit. I do not think the blend is currently blending. Like, to see these little black particles are surviving inside there, this should all be blending and be a more perfect gradient. I'm not sure what to make of that. Like, we should almost see this constant gradient, like, fading up here. Now, we do have a lot of particles. I super dig the way it looks. I'm actually very, very, very pleased with what we've got here overall. I guess I'm going to rewind. We're going to give that a save, and I'll save it as another version for as we continue. And I'm going to try rendering this out as a picture viewer, but it could eat up all of our memory, so that could be bad. But just for trying to think of what the best way to do this would be, let's delete out. I'm going to delete out that timer and make a camera. And I just want to give us like a little bit of a matrix effect here, just so we can feel the dimension. Because once we start rendering, obviously we're not going to be able to reposition the camera. So maybe I'm just doing the simplest possible way. I'll make a circle spline. T for scale. Make a camera. Actually, it doesn't need to be a child. Right click, animation, align to spline. The spline will be the circle. We will keyframe. Let's turn those off just in case. Keyframe the position. And at the end of the animation, we will have looped around, I don't know, 5 times. Keyframe that. And then we make a null, right click on the camera, target the null, and aim upward a little bit. And now I have to manipulate the circle, pull that up a little bit. And then should we influence that to go forward a little bit more? Yeah, let's see. The playback might be awful. And those keyframes are not linear. Select both keyframes, linear. And then in the beginning, I want to see more of it. So we will grab our circle. R for rotate, can't really see it. So I will just grab this. There we go, spin that around. So we'll start a little bit further back. Okay, so that happens. And then save, render settings, output, don't actually save. Lower our resolution, lock the ratio. Divided by 2, that's going to be pretty low. Maybe I'll say times 1.5. And output all frames as a viewport renderer. Viewport renderer, copy the effects from the viewport, and load my preset so that we're not seeing all these extra bits, and we don't need to see the HUD. Maybe that works. I feel like I mess that up pretty often. No, aim down more. Actually, no, I want to see those splats, so let's be careful there. Let's widen our field of view as well. Okay, let's see. I don't know what this will do. Reactivate those. Go. Okay, this is a good start. That's kind of what I was expecting, or kind of hoping. Let's see if our particles, they appear. They're full bright lava color. Looks like we have a random burst happen immediately. It's not going to look like lava too much until we let the age go for a little while. That's fine. Demi. Yeah, Demi, we've been doing a volcano this whole time, just doing some hot lava. Daryl, thank you so much. Yeah, Paul, I mean, we're setting up this little preview one so we can at least get some slightly faster, like, viewport playback. Like if we hit play, I won't be before I hit play, I wouldn't be surprised if it looks terrible. We've been looking at everything at like one frame per second, so this might be like behaving way too fast. It might be behaving way too slow. I don't know, but let's see. No, it's not bad. It's not bad. Spot, spot, spot. So here's the reason to do those viewport renders, is that we can like suddenly see this happening. I think we're spinning around a little too fast, but not bad. That guy really shouldn't be standing there. Yeah, the spots look great. Sliding down here, the viscosity, as they get older, then the viscosity, or not the viscosity, but the stickiness is going to be increasing, so they slide down quick. Now, what's funny is like how quickly these are fading. Like it's not taking long for us to get up to 300 frames here. Like how some of these are already getting dark red. Oh, these splats are so good. I cannot believe with all of the liquid stuff, we are just bursting some turbulence and we are bursting some wind, like on random intervals. I cannot believe how good those splats look just from those two properties. Like that's crazy. I'm very happy that we came up with an elegant solution, an elegant, very artistic solution for that. I'm not. I like the scale of the splats we're getting. Definitely a thing I could see tinkering with would be taking that cylinder in the center and randomly animating the radius of it, so we could use a field driver, or even the Maxon field driver, and drive it with noise. And it could be randomly small and randomly large, and we could be getting all these different splats. And you might get like a tiny little geyser, or you could do it where like a massive geyser comes out, just to get more variation on there. But yeah, these colors fade quick. Now I'm curious, I'm now looking around to see if I can see the blending. And yeah, right now the blending does seem to be working. If you look, we get this big splat happening here. Okay, yeah, I think I see the crossfade there. And especially right around there, like those colors seem to be blending with each other very well. It's a little hard to tell, but splats. Yeah, I cannot believe how nice those look. It's crazy. Like a small one there because the power wasn't that high and it didn't last for very long. A bigger one there, and a massive one there. Blurp, blurp, blurp. Even what's interesting here is you can see these ones on the wall are darkening quite quickly, but down here they're not darkening because there's always new particles flowing down, which are reheating them back up again. So we've got some dark ones, but the forward bit of the flow is still going. I'm quite pleased. This viewport render is working faster than I thought it would. Like now that we get to see this constantly looping, every time we loop around, we have like another 10 frames or something to look at. So just very fun. Yeah. I mean, my favorite updates from C4D are always going to be when you just get a new tool that you can play with. And you look at this, it's like, oh my goodness, like we could not have done anything like this in the past. Yep, I'm quite pleased. Some of the blending is still bugging me. I don't feel like I'm trying to look for the blending parts, but as because I have it blending like 50%, as we these could become really dark and we get these light splats sliding down, I don't feel like I'm seeing the colors transition the way I would think that the blend would have to blend. But the blend is not under any sort of condition. So I'm just kind of confused. We are quickly nearing the end of the stream. Do we have any final questions that we can do here? Oh, that new spot! I know every little spot here. I love the way it looks. This one very directional, kind of stringy. This one just being a big bubble that pops. This one just kind of like laps up to the one side and kind of gushes back down. That one's looking just great, and this last one, just a nice big powerful like boom, like lots of like orientation direction on that one. Splat. Blub, blub, blub. Yeah, the only bit that's bugging me right now is the blending. Everything else is behaving exactly the way we wanted it to. As far as I can tell, like these ones that cooled off, these dark ones are flowing very like it's red. It's hard to tell here because we're moving, but those seem to be moving, and then the friction gets higher and higher and higher, and then just kind of stop. Maybe not entirely, but pretty dang close to stopping. But meanwhile, we've got this big lava flow going down the front. It's feeling very lava like down there, like and those ends are darkening. But keep in mind, oh, actually, it's hard to see, but over here at the end, this darker area, you see that even these black ones are still flowing. And that's because we didn't do anything to change the viscosity or the velocity or anything. We just stopped, we just have them have a lot of friction. So if there's a big blob of these darker ones that have cooled off, they can still roll over each other. And that rolling, is still going to let it continue to spread even if they're dark. So we would have to add some additional like velocity properties onto there, maybe, or like I don't think we do with viscosity. So I think we would just have to put some sort of like speed multiplier on them that they want to travel slower as they're darker. But I that would work, but it's a proxy because I wouldn't necessarily want them to. What that would mean is if a dark one somehow did get pushed over a cliff, it would fall down, floating in the air very slowly, which isn't realistic, obviously. But as long as it's on the surface, well, I guess if we just mapped it so it's constantly going slower, then these little splats, these dark, you see, there's definitely some dark red whenever we get an explosion. There's some dark red, but that would mean those dark red ones are flying through the air more slowly. So we might need there to be some sort of like proximity to the ground calculation, and those are not cheap to do that type of proximity. Um, I'm glad I did, even though the camera's spinning a little too fast for me. I'm glad I did put the spin because it gives you the dimension of any of these bursts. Because without the spin, you lose like the depth perception on it. It's just fun to look at. Um, let's see. Let's see. TJ, thank you. A fixed camera. I mean, yeah, fixed cameras are easy, but like I said, I think I'm getting a lot of information because the camera's moving. The let's see. Yeah, sorry, not addressing the tire thing. That'd be a whole new question. There's not time, but tune in next week. Um, let's see. Can we try mixing different liquids? Yeah, we kind of did the color here, even if we're not liquid. The lack of speed could also indicate, yep, Tobias. That's true. That's what we eventually did. Um, oh, we should put a vertex map on the man and use that as a pyro source. Yeah, we could do that. I thought you were also saying we just put a vertex map on the figure there, and then as lava passes through it, we could have the vertex map heat up, and then you can see how hot he's gotten and how much lava has been poured on him. And then Tobias, or why is the viewport render so much faster than playing back in the viewport? It kind of goes through, is it faster? And maybe it is. Maybe if I just go to the very end here, yeah, well, actually, these are playing back really quick. But maybe this goes back to my weird video card inside this machine where, like, sometimes it does seem like it's playing back really quick. And then other times it's playing back slow. And maybe maybe this viewport is, maybe we're getting lucky. Maybe the viewport is actually triggering it to be in that faster mode, and then we just get to play it back in real time. But yeah, if you go to the actual frame, this does, first of all, there's more particles here because no particle ever dies. So this should just be going slower and slower. And this does feel like it's playing, it's rendering quicker than it was when I was just doing it in the viewport. I don't have an answer for that. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to add more things on here. The blending, I do want to kind of solve the blending. How quickly am I just wrong? Is it still successfully blending? I don't think it is. But like, I don't have a fix for that. Blurp, blurp. Wow, that last one. Look at that last one. Boom. It's like a whole freaking wall of lava coming out. And that's a great splat there. Oh boy. So what's the deal with the blending? I was saying the spin was too fast. I'm not sure that I think it is. It more goes to like, here we are in the front. I could widen that circle back up out again and then scoot it a little more central. Maybe slow it down. Select that keyframe and say only spin around 400, so it's a bit slower. Blending. Blend based on age, and then color map. Color map has nothing to do with the age blending. So the age is straight up. Neighbor search fixed. Blending normal, blending min max, noise based. No, I don't feel like any of those mean anything. Does this noise even do anything there? I'm gonna say like, okay, no noise strength, please. Distance fall off probably just means it fades as it gets further away instead of just being straight up in there, which is honestly not inherently a bad thing. And then I'm going to more than double my radius there. The strength is very high, so that's like, it's a very blatant blending. So with a larger radius, it's a larger radius but a smaller fall off. So the ones that are close together, in theory, will blend quicker, and the ones that are further away from each other will contribute to the central blending less. Neighbor search dynamic. That's something that I just don't know. Neighbor search. Determine the immediate neighbors of the particles. This also influences the output of neighbor count. The term neighbor particles in this context depends on the radius. Yes. Fixed is the default used in C4D. It can be calculated quickly. It's not very precise for simulations with many particles. Dynamic. This is an improvement in fixed mode and allows you to check the upper limit of neighbor particles. Maximum checks. Maybe. Full. Except the upper limit of particles does not have to be specified. So that's some sort of maximum number of particles within range. I mean, I wouldn't think that we already made some other changes. So do I change it to be dynamic, or do we see if this increased radius and distance fall off does anything for us? I mean, I might even increase this radius more, because by turning on this distance fall off, I feel like it wouldn't actually be changing much. By doubling it again, I feel like it would be. Let's see if the blending feels like it blends. We should be able to tell relatively quickly, as soon as we've got some variation in the color, of course. From my recollection, this first burst, they turn quite orange before they even hit the ground. Now, see, to my knowledge, these are all getting darker, but they're touching these yellow ones. And I would think that this would be a constant, because these are constantly being refreshed down to be very bright, that these would be constantly getting this gradient. The soft gradient fading them out. But then again, at 50%, it's quite strong. So maybe the bleeding edge would be very, very sharp. Okay, let's see where that splat, if that splat lands in the puddle. Yeah, okay, so that landed in there. Let's see. Of course, if they sink down, we're going to lose it. Oh, they did seem to fade out. And is 50% tricking me because it's so strong that we don't really get a gradient. But then again, as those other ones were sliding, I don't know. It's just, it's not quite what I'm expecting. Like if here you see these, we got all these really bright yellows. I would think that those would be kind of climbing up the wall here and setting the age lower and lower and lower because they're constantly getting refreshed with a younger age. That's what I would think. But then there's other little areas that's like, well, is it those almost, I don't know if there's actually sunk in or not. But then, yeah, like, okay, this section here now. So we get this splat, and then do they sink in or do they crossfade? And then now as we do this, like I'm kind of looking at, is that those just aging? That's a hard cutoff for where they're getting turned yellow. It's I'm a little thrown by how ambiguous this is. Like, is it straight up just not working? I'm gonna turn that on dynamic this time. Is it straight up not working? Maximum checks. Maximum checks. Oh, okay. That only exists under dynamic. And is that just that many checks within that range? Presumably it's within that range, not total. We're just blending the age by 50%. I'm going to, let's go extreme here. I'm going to drop it down to 25%, which is more of a gradient, and increase the radius dramatically. Just to try and gain some knowledge here. See, like, I don't know for sure, but look, didn't it just feel like that just rendered super duper quick? We just got to those orange ones so quick, and the previous one, I feel like it took quite some time to get there. All right, so already we've got these orange ones out of range, and I'm just not feeling much of a gradient there. But then are those touching, and then are they fading out? This is really throwing me. Like, are we seeing more of a gradient there or not? Demi, I'm not going to add pyro onto this one. I mean, that's the type of thing I would love to explore. Just like I said, it would be fun if we could add some like land coalescing, etc. Let's see. So now, see here, let's see. Here we get this burst. And then you definitely see that we have, like, there's a red one, there's a yellow one, we got some orange one sprinkled in. And then we go a couple frames further. And now, well, they're all aging. So how much is that them crossfading? How much is that them aging? Because we already know they turn orange. From yellow, they turn orange just from bursting, just from the straight up age gradient. You know, might be a good idea is let's turn off blending entirely and get a baseline. At this point, I am zooming in on a nitty gritty. Most of this, we avoided it, but I feel like we got to a really good place. And now there's what I consider to be a relatively easy operation, like simple operation here, blending this age. And I just don't see how I'm messing it up. And maybe I'm not messing it up. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it is working this whole time. So let's change color. Now, I mean, here's the funny part is like if I zoom up, like that doesn't really look any different to me. Like we're not doing any blending. I turned it off. and it doesn't look any different, as if it was not doing any blending ever. And even here, I was always wondering if that splat was blending, but I think it wasn't. I think it's just sinking inside because there's no blending now, and it still kind of looks like it's crossfading. Blurp. Yeah, that's kind of turning it off is a sanity check because that does not feel very different. Like, let's just observe like that splat there, splat, and then while the splat's happening, maybe they're falling into the cylinder even. Yeah, yeah. Actually, that's probably them fading because of cylinder. They fell into this cylinder shape, and the cylinder is applying 10 frames per, so that would give a little bit of a gradient on them. There are several things that are throwing me off. Like, do you see this like oscillation we're getting here? It kind of goes, you see, it gets a little bit orangey, and then suddenly pops to yellow, and it gets a little bit orangey, and then pops to yellow right there. But that's not the way our condition is working. Our condition is saying if you're in the field, which they're always in the field down there, every single frame it should be subtracting this math. It's not like every 10th frame. So why does that? Why does that feel like it's kind of popping? Oh, I actually might know what's happening there because we have the condition, which is saying if you're greater than 10. So the instant they hit 10, they're suddenly getting oscillated down. So it's 10, 10, 10, and they're going down that way. Okay, that at least solves why that's happening. And mostly that's just a problem because in the beginning, there's not enough lava. So we're seeing that surface where I could solve that just by sinking that down a little bit or making there be more particles. So that answers that at least. What this doesn't answer is why the blend is not blending. The color, like this blend would be acting by itself. It should be acting unto itself. The fact that we're recolorizing is merely a like an observation. It's merely us being able to visualize the fact that the age was changing. Yeah, I'm thrown off by it. I mean, I could work on this all day. Unfortunately, I got other things I do have to work on. I just turned off the math subtraction, and I think the blending is on. So I just eliminated the math, brightening everything up over and over again. So now the only fresh lava is the ones that are actually being emitted. And now we don't get that harsh gradient here. But in theory, it's blending again. So as we get like a splat landing on what would be maybe some lighter color, which is going to happen more infrequently because we need the explosion to happen. Yeah, we might have to let go a little bit further because all this is now older lava. The next splat will bring up some yellow. And by the time the yellow lands, our orange should be kind of red. Whoa there. What's so cool is that all we'd have to do is change that random noise and we have completely new explosions happening. There's our second. Yeah, as it comes around, I'm starting to see some areas that we can observe. So, like right there, we've got some orange on red. We've got a huge radius that's supposed to be crossfading between them. And they're transitioning over 25 frames. So, or I'm sorry, 25%. So over, it'd be 25%, and it's diminishing returns. But I would think after like 5, 6, 7, 8, especially 10 frames, these would be 100% age blended. And I just don't feel like that's what we're seeing. Like, yeah, these are turning a little bit more red, but they're also just aging. But like, I would think that this difference would get so diffused that we wouldn't be able to see any differentiation there. I got a lot of colors. Okay, so now definitely you got these really dark ones, these really light ones. Nothing is modifying the colors except for the straight up mapping of the age and then the blending. And look, it's just not blending. Is there a bug there? Um, because there's no way. Like, look right here. Like, there's this dark one and these lighter ones. Over the course of 5, 6 frames, these should be 100% blended with each other, and they just aren't. Like, look at all this intermixing here. Curious. Am I doing something wrong? Am I doing something wrong, or is there just a bug in it? Because those are not blending. And if we take a look again at the blend age, 25% strength with a huge radius. So that should be blending like amongst a bunch of different pieces. No distance fall off, full calculation, or yeah, no, just straight up blending. This noise I don't think is a variable here. That's back to default. Yeah, I cannot account for that one. I'm curious, but anyway, we got some really lovely results outside of the blending. Not blending. This is not going to be heating up the lava anymore, but that's looking pretty great. Shablams. Blammo. Shablams. I dig it. Well, anyway, I hope everybody had a good stream. I know we only kind of tackled one question, but hey, the liquids are new. They're exciting. We're learning a lot every time we play with them. I think the most important parameter that we got today, and that's thanks to FCO, was that I totally missed that there was an acceleration clamp that was stopping them from moving quickly, which is what we needed them to do here. We needed the wind to be able to really fling them. And as soon as we turned that off, it started working pretty much perfectly. And the impressive part is that even here, like we're just barely driving some of the viscosity and whatnot. Like actually right now we're back to those being defaults. So we've got a data mapper that's changing the stickiness, but everything else is pretty much default out of the gate, which is super crazy. The stickiness was super important to make it feel like lava, but outside of that, it's working really well. As always, these scene files will be available to everybody after the live stream. I will be putting them. Well, they're available to everybody supporting a Patreon at a technician tier or engineer tier, and I appreciate all of that support. Go and check that out. I successfully launched the beta for one of our plugins, so that is now in the hands of some users who are doing some testing for us. So that's exciting. Maybe I'll be able to show that one off pretty soon. It's a relatively simple tool, all things considered. But I think that will wrap this one up. Next week should be a regular live stream, or maybe Winbush will be able to be a guest that week. No way to know for sure, but I think that is going to wrap this one up. So I would say, yeah, until next week, bye-bye, everybody.